So this is Quirk bringing you the second of our Lichess4545 game reviews. This will be our board 5 game between Icheckyoumate versus Lukhas. And last season I got confused and I thought Lukhas465 or whatever his name was a developer on the Lichess team. But now this is the real man. This is the true Lukhas, who actually is a developer on the Lichess team. So this game I thought well, it was quite interesting. Both players, I felt, didn't really understand the ideas of their opening. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about the opening, like making sure you understand the ideas of the opening, and then the game progresses into a game where the initiative is very important. So d4, knight f6, bishop f4, the London system. And London system players catch a lot of flack for sort of playing the same thing every game. And here that really turns out to be the case when, and I think that white's not really playing the best moves in the position. Because you have to adjust to what your opponent is doing if you want to get the best position possible. Now, it's fine if you just want to play something where you're like, yeah, I'm comfortable here, I won't have any advantage, but I understand the positions. But for me, I'm sort of a more perfectionist player, and I do try and give myself the best chances in any position. So black plays g6, it's a King's Indian setup versus the London, which is a perfectly fine way to play. And here white plays e3, which is not a move I like. e3 is just, you know, your standard London move. You're going to play all these moves. We know what we're going to play for the first 8 moves of the game. But I think it's actually not the best move in this position. And the reason is black is slightly neglecting the center here with the way he's choosing to play. Not that he's playing badly, but his choice is neglecting the center. He hasn't established a pawn anywhere in the center. So as white, I would really, really want to play the move e4, just really taking control of the center. Now obviously, I currently can't play the move e4. It's protected. But I would be very tempted here to play the move knight c3. And the reason I want to play the move knight c3 is I just want to play e4. And if black goes d5, which is probably the best move here, preventing e4, that has its own problems, because black actually doesn't really want to play the move d5. And we'll talk about why in just a little bit, because, spoiler alert, the move d5 was actually played in the game, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. So e3 chosen, probably not the most critical. Bishop g7, knight f3, and as promised, d5 from black. And this, to me, felt a little bit suspicious. And the reason is, black is employing a King's Indian setup here with the bishop on g7. And usually in the King's Indian, black plays the move d6. And we have to ask ourselves, why? Well, normally the reason is because white has pawns here that will prevent you from playing d5. But the other reason that this move d6 is so useful for black is that black, the way he's playing is he's emphasizing this piece on g7. He wants this piece to be an incredibly powerful piece. And right now, it's not a powerful piece because it's just staring at this wall on d4. We're not going to be able to punch through this wall. So what is black going to do? He's going to break down the wall. So this move d6 makes a lot of sense, supporting either c5, chipping away at d4, or e5, chipping away at d4. Note that after d5, it's a little bit harder to sort of chip away here. It's not as easy because the pawn is not supporting these squares. So d5, again, not some terrible move, but probably not super precise. Bishop d3. I'm going to criticize this move as well. This is white saying, hey, I know the London. The bishop goes to d3. But in this position, what is the bishop doing on d3? He's staring at a rook. He is not useful here. Black has a firm control over the e4 square. I'm not going to push e4. So the white bishop is not a useful piece here. It makes much more sense in this position to go bishop e2. Here, the bishop has chances to come to f3 and play a useful part in the battle. Okay, bishop d3, another automatic move, not a huge fan. Castles, sure. And c3. Again, I'm gonna keep going over this. Why does white play c3 in the London? Well, white plays c3 when black plays c5 and is threatening to play c4 and force the bishop to some stupid square. So here, black hasn't played c5 yet. I see no reason to play c3. I think white should just castle. And if black goes c5, then I'll go c3. Because now you had this idea of going c4. But I don't need this move until you've played c5. And I think the inclusion of this move, c3, gives black an interesting opportunity here. So, when I see my opponent make a move that I'm not totally sure is useful in the position, I am going to try my hardest to get positions where the move c3 is not useful. So as black, I would be thinking here, well, I'm not sure c3 was such a great move. I'm not sure if it really did a lot for white's position. So I'm going to try and play a position where this move is not justified, which means I'm going to try and play a position where I don't play c5. But if I don't play c5, what must I play? I have to play the other break in the center. I have to play e5. So, again, the move that stands out to me here for black is knight c6. This seems like a very strong move to me. Trying to tell white, I feel like you played a little bit inaccurately. I feel like this move c3 was a wasted tempo. And say white castles, that's a reasonable move. Now I'm going to play another move geared at getting e5. I'm going to play knight d7. All of a sudden, I have three pieces supporting the e5 break, and the e5 break actually cannot be prevented here. I mean, that's not quite true. You can play bishop b5, and then when I play e5, you're threatening to take one of my knights, but then you've moved your bishop twice. That's another concession that you've made. This is an interesting position because white can go e4 and it'll be met by e5, and we get very, very sharp play. But that would be my inclination as black when I see this move c3. I might say I don't think this was quite correct. Black instead chose to play knight bd7. Again, not some terrible move. It just it makes it harder to achieve e5 because now black cannot have both knights pointing at the e5 square. Knight bd2, white develops his knight. That's a good move. And here black plays c5, which is fine. I'm not claiming that this is a bad move by any means. No, this is a very normal move. But again, I like the other path better. But this should be fine for black as well. And here, again, I don't like white's choice. Queen c2 played. Probably better is just to castle and continue development. The problem with queen c2 is again, I feel like white isn't quite understanding the ideas of the London. First off, the queen here, this battery is never really going anywhere because of the g6 point. And I could understand the queen being useful here to support e4. That's a very normal idea. But the problem with the queen being here is you took this square away from the d3 bishop. That's usually the point of c3, as we mentioned, is to prevent this c4 move from kicking the bishop to some awkward diagonal. So here black played very powerfully, I thought. First, knight h5. This is a common idea in the London, just trying to win the bishop pair. Sometimes white will play h3 to combat this, just tuck the bishop away. It hasn't happened this game. So black says, gift me the bishops. And again, I have to criticize white. I've been very critical of white here, but I truly think his play in the opening has not been very strong. White is very compliant here. He says, yeah, you can have my bishop. No problem, man. I didn't want it anyway. A much stronger move is just being a little bit more annoying, saying, no. You want my bishop? You're going to have to create weaknesses. If you want my bishop, you're going to have to play the move g5 and weaken your king side. And here, this is a slightly different story because now white's kingside structure is, or sorry, black's kingside structure is a little bit more extended, a little bit more compromised. So this would give white more to play for than the game continuation. After the very timid bishop g3, this is much less good because black has not been forced to create weaknesses. Black is getting everything he wants sort of for free. Black takes the bishop, of course, very sensible, and plays c4. I like black's play. Black is really pushing white around. He's forcing white to do what he wants. He's calling the shots. And that's really what the initiative is. The person who's calling the shots, in this case it's black. Black's saying, nah, I get to decide what happens this game. So after c4, bishop e2. And we see that black has a very nice position. He has two bishops. He has space on the queen side. Yeah, there's an open h-file, but it's going to be very difficult to checkmate black because black has an unopposed dark square bishop guarding the king. So I like black quite a bit here. Here black goes knight f6. Sensible. Just improving the knight. It's very poor on the d7 square. Also, he wants to develop this bishop somewhere. It makes a lot of sense. Knight f6. And here, white probably missed his chance. White needs to take the initiative because white has long-term problems with his position. Long-term, white does not have the bishop pair. White has less space. White has a slightly crippled structure here. So, white needs to come up with a middle game plan that is going to seize the initiative. And, as we talked about last video, you can get your middle game plans either from the structure or from your pieces. So, as I see it here, neither of these pieces are terribly happy for white. And I see a very interesting structure here. This is a structure that I see in the Queen's Gambit Decline sometimes, where black pushes c5 and then c4. And it's not precisely the structure because there would be no c-pawn. But always, 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 the idea for white in these structures, where black has extended like this, is to play e4. And white can play it right now. He has two defenders, black only has two attackers. So e4 is very, very playable. And this makes a lot of sense. White is simply attacking the base of black's pawn chain. And unfortunately for black, e6 is not a very desirable move because then white will go e5, and white will have space on the king's side, and that actually makes white's threats on the king's side more reasonable. So here, black probably doesn't want to allow e5. That's a little dangerous. You maybe can with a developing move like queen c7. The reason queen c7, this pawn is going to be hanging in some lines. But this all feels a little shaky. So after sort of a logical continuation, here white has solved some of his problems. White has cleared up some space for his pieces. He's traded a set of pieces, which gives him more space. He's immediately created a threat, and white's position makes a lot of sense here. So I think this was a big missed opportunity. White needs to go e4. Because after knight e5, which does improve a piece, and maybe has ideas of improving this bishop or like slowly preparing play, black plays a very strong move, which is bishop f5. He develops his last minor piece and says, no e4. You missed your chance. You should have played e4 when you had the chance. And white must move the queen, so queen a4. Now it's black's turn to try and come up with a plan, because black has developed all his minor pieces. He's castled. He has some pawns in the center. So he's completed his goals out of the opening. Now black has to decide, well, what am I going to do with my life? And black can look at his pieces, or black can look at the structure. And here I see a structural idea for black. Black would really like to attack the base of the pawn chain. That's a common theme. You always go for the base of the pawn chain. You go for a pawn break, and you want to break the base of the pawn chain, because when you break the base of the pawn chain, you're going to create a weakness at the base of the pawn chain, and then you want to go and attack that weakness. So black's plan here should be b5, b4. And if you have a plan, you should see if it works. And in this position, b5 just works tactically. Because after queen b5, rook b8, I'm going to take this pawn, I'm going to have a rook on the second, and your position is going to suffer quite greatly here. So b5 would be very strong here, just immediately posing black questions. Or sorry, posing white questions about how are we going to deal with these breaks that are coming. Instead of the move b5, which I thought was very strong, black played another interesting move. It shows me that black was thinking prophylactically. Black was thinking about, what does white want to play? Can I prevent white's ideas? Which is a good way to think. We talked about this in the last video. We do want to prevent our opponent's ideas. But if we can advance our own ideas, sometimes that's even better than preventing our own ideas, especially when our own ideas come with tempo. So black played queen c8, which shows me that black had some understanding of this position. He was trying to deny this move g4, which was going to start pushing his pieces back, something like g4, g5. But again, b5 slightly better. And here, white played what I might describe as the losing move. The engine does not agree with me, but this is a move I would never play, and I think it really is, at this point, white gives himself a strategically lost position, because white, in this position, long castled. And this is showing a strong misunderstanding of the position. Because when I long castle, I'm really making this game about the initiative, more than it even was before. Because whoever has the initiative is going to be able to sort of quickly create threats against the opponent's king. So when I long castle, I'm saying that I claim my initiative is stronger than yours. And I just think that claim is simply false. Because if I give white 3 moves in a row, say he doubles and plays like g4, you're still not really gonna mate me. Because even if you take h7 after you kick my knight away, this bishop is just such a good defender that I'm not getting checkmated. So I think white really overestimated this open h-file and what it will do for his position. Because I think that even if he takes on h7, he's just not getting the checkmate he wants. Especially with this white queen over here in La La Land not contributing anything on the king side. So, yeah, this queenside castle is, I am not a fan. And black will quickly rush pawns down and start checkmating you, especially because he has this monstrous bishop. Good lord. What a monster he is. Yeah, this is just probably already close to lost for white. Instead of queenside castles, white can short castle, or white can consider starting some of his own play with b3. And after takes, you have to take with the queen, and then this is something. You have a weakness, but this is weak, this is slightly weak, so white has something to play for. Maybe white goes c4 and gets some action. Black goes a6, good move, he's starting his play. f3, hinting at some of these guys. b5, sensible. Queen a5. Here black went knight d7. I'm not sure I would want to trade pieces currently if I'm convinced that my attack is coming first. I would maybe look at this move rook b8. Rook b8 with the ideas of going b4. But knight d7 is not some terrible move. It does look to trade off a strong piece for white. And here, white again missed a chance. Because as white, I have to find play. I have to find initiative. Because if I don't, I'm just going to get steamrolled on the queen side. So we think, okay, black is steamrolling me on the queen side. What do I need to do? Am I going to checkmate him on the king side? No, it's not going to happen. So that leads me to the logical conclusion. I have to play in the center. If I'm getting mated on the queen side, and I'm not mating on the king side, I better make something happen in the center. So again, we come back to this idea, probably bishop takes actually, just because this is going to come in tempo. Bishop takes, and e4. And here, white at least has some play. Black is not really interested in taking because that'll just improve the knight to a nice square. So maybe black goes e6, but now, again, white has found some space. White can maybe go for f5. White has an idea, at least. It might not be a great idea, but it's an idea. It's something. Okay, instead of this, white played g4. Not a good move. The problem is, black is sort of threatening to take here. So after g4 takes, this is not really what white wanted. You are obliged to take on f5. If you take on e5, I simply drop the bishop back, and your structure starts to be quite problematic here. You probably have to play f4, but now I'm going to start gunning for this b4 break. Rook b8, maybe even f6 at some point to start breaking down this diagonal. Black's having all the fun. You're not really doing anything here. So white takes the bishop, And knight c6 with tempo. Black's trying to get his pawns rolling. Queen a3. And now this is an interesting moment. Black has to decide how he would like to proceed. Maybe take a moment here. Ask yourself, what would you play as Black? So, Black, I have to congratulate Black for his spirit. Black did not say, I want a pawn. This is a good move, just taking a pawn. Black said, I am more ambitious than simply wanting a pawn. I want a king. But unfortunately, this is a little bit too ambitious. Better is simply to take, or to develop another piece with a move like rook d8. But this move a5 is slightly problematic for Black. And the reason is, currently, the white queen is very unhappy with where she is. She's sort of stuck in a cage here. And a5 really gives an opportunity to the queen to cause some problems with a double attack. That's a little bit annoying. And if you save your pawn, this is a really crucial pawn. You can't lose this pawn. Then I'll take here on rook b8. I think I'm actually not going to take the second pawn. And Black is still better, don't get me wrong. Black still has a huge initiative, has pressure against the b2 pawn. But White at least has something to play for. Again, he can claim that he's accomplished something. So a5, not so great, allowing White to slip in here and cause some problems. Notice that if you take here, this is not really problematic because the b pawn is still defended. So I can simply drop back, defend everything, and I'm up a pawn. What's the problem? Okay, a5. And White missed his only chance. You have to play queen c5. Otherwise, this move is coming and there's nothing to be done. So queen c5 must be played. Otherwise, White is just losing. Instead, White played a truly terrific move. I vaguely understand why this move was played. White was having some issues with the queen, but if you're having issues with the queen, you should move it, right? White played the move b3. Highly suspicious. Moving a pawn in front of your king when your king shelter is already collapsing, not the best idea. So Black missed a very powerful idea here. It's an idea that was showcased in one of Magnus Carlsen's games. It was the game where he lost a piece against Gawain Jones, but went on to actually win the game. And the way he did that was by ripping open the king's side. And he ripped open the king's side, in this case the queen's side, by creating massive pawn tension. And now, no matter what, some lines against the white king are going to open up. Just to show some sample variations. Queen b2, you don't want to take this because, again, lines open up, and this is bad. This is really, really bad. So queen b2 takes, and I have a shot here because if you take, I take on e2, and it's not surprising that I have a shot in this position. I've opened up all these lines in front of your king. All my pieces are on decent squares, and all your pieces are on passive squares. It makes sense for this to be tactically winning for Black. So after b3, this b4 move is very strong. Black took first and then played b4, but this has This is slightly less accurate because white can now close the position with c4. And all of a sudden, these lines against the king don't quite open up. So here black played dc4, which is not best. Best is continuing to insist on open lines. a4, b3. And notice that taking here is actually not a threat due to an instant win of the queen. So after b3, white is really obliged to play a3, keeping everything closed. But now takes, knight takes, and we see that black actually won some time getting his pawns further down the board. These pawns are really going to cause problems to the white king, covering these squares around the white king. The other variation to take note of is after b3, if white tries to go c5, which is to keep the c line closed, this actually loses instantly to knight b4, attacking the queen, knight a2. Oh, you don't want to do that? Why don't you want to take that? You don't feel like it? No? No? What's happening? What? Okay, great. Knight a2. King b2 is an only move. And now black forces the opening of the file with the very, very nasty queen c5. Abusing his well-placed pieces. This is just clearly lost for white. So c4 takes, not the most accurate. Again, black still has a wonderful position, but he's missing some killing blows here. Knight c4, queen f5, black takes the pawn, sure. Knight b6, this is an interesting idea from white. As white, it's hard to suggest a better move than knight b6. Maybe it's time to get out of dodge, but I mean, this looks ridiculous. Maybe black can even go e5 here and just open it up while the king is in the center. So knight d6, rook b8, and knight a4. This was white's idea. He wants to sort of clamp down on these queenside pawns, blockade them, and perhaps this knight will come to c5 and serve as a blocker on the c file. Rook fc8, bringing the last piece to the party. Very good, very strong. Bishop c4. And now we have to pause, because here black played really an egregious move. So, as black, you have to ask yourself, do I have a long-term advantage or a short-term advantage? Sometimes this is referred to as statics. A static advantage is a long-term advantage. It'll be there forever. Or dynamics, which is a short-term advantage. And in my opinion, black has multiple static advantages. The first static advantage he has is he has a pawn. He's just up a pawn. The second static advantage he has, and I would call this a static advantage, is that white's king is forever weak. It will never find shelter. So I think even long term, white's king is never going to be safe. So as black, I would play a really simple move, like e6. Or if I was feeling feisty, if I was feeling like I wanted to start something, I would play the move e5, just opening up the center while the king is unsafe. What I would not play in this position where I have very long-term advantages, I would not play a queen sacrifice. Whew, this one's a little bit out of left field. And it doesn't work at all. It's just a total miscalculation. So when you're winning and you have long-term advantages, just play simple chess. Let your advantages be advantages for the rest of the game. There's no reason for any of this. This is just totally unnecessary. White said, okay, that's a queen, I'll take it. And black, I mean, black's not an idiot, right? He didn't just blunder his queen. He had an idea. And that was knight d4 check. And here, white blundered back. And this is really basic stuff here. I teach this to my kids. There are 3 ways to get at a check. You move the king, you block the check, or you take the thing that's checking you. Here, white just wins an exchange. No questions asked. I take your checking rook. And okay, now I have to move. Yeah, you get my queen, I agree. But hold on. I'm up a rook. Right? That's just a rook. So this just wins for white instantly. And it's sort of strange that both players missed this very forcing sequence, where it's only 2 moves here. Takes and takes. That's all you have to calculate. So we're clearly missing our forcing moves here. White obviously did not look at all his captures, because you have to realize, what's the only piece I can capture? If I want to capture something, it has to be the checking piece. Can I capture it? Yes, I can. Why not do it? Instead, white played the worst move, not the worst move in the position, but the second worst move in the position. He played queen c4. Okay, it's not the second. You could also, this is even worse. But queen c4 is a really bad move. White is even winning after king b1, with the point being that when you take here, I take your rook again. But if you saw that you could take the rook, you would take it right away. But this wins for white. But queen c4 does not win for white. After black plays the very nice move, knight takes e6. Not accepting the queen, because here white would be up a piece, and the black knight is still under attack, needs to be saved. But instead, black takes on e6 and points out to white, hey white, you played yourself. That queen is still lost. And white, probably somewhat flustered at this point, actually blundered again immediately. White can play simple chess and say, look, okay, I'm gonna lose the queen for the rook. Let's just make it happen. I lose the queen for the rook. And here, white has the exchange, but black has 2 pawns, roughly equal position. Instead of this very, very normal idea, white thought he had a tactic. He did not have a tactic, but he thought he had a tactic. He played rook d8. Why am I not connecting? Come on. What's going on here? There we go. White played rook d8 check, which his idea is, or he must have thought, black's going to take with the rook, and then I have a queen. And this would be okay for white. I mean, it's rook and bishop and 2 pawns for the queen, so probably still about equal. But black was rudely met with knight takes d8, when he still loses the queen. And this is just a 1-move tactic, right? It's sort of like rook d8 check. Rook takes d8, my queen is saved. Does he have to play rook takes d8? No, he can take with a knight. Oh, okay. Doesn't work. So, yeah, you can't miss these 1-movers. That's not how you're going to win a game. Here, this just throws the game away. White went from totally winning to drawn to dead lost in like 3 moves, just based on 2 huge blunders in a row. So for both these players, it's back to the drawing board with those forcing moves, right? Look at all the captures, all the captures. This is a miscapture on c8 from both players. This is a miscapture on d8 from the white player. And here, this is just lost. Knight c5, interference. But now this is another piece, which means that black will end up with rook, knight, and bishop for the queen. That's too much material. Queen h4 takes with check. Otherwise, this would come through, but I mean, that doesn't even matter. Rook h5. The rooks come off. And here, black does a good job converting his advantage. He says, it's the endgame, I'm pushing my pawn. Let's see it happen. Gets the queen, defends e7. Push, push, push. And black quickly ends the game with the move rook a8. And black will queen here. It's unstoppable. You cannot prevent this and queens. So in this position, white resigned. A very interesting game. I would advise both players to look over their openings and make sure they're really fully understanding the ideas behind the openings. I know I was talking about some more subtle points that don't have the largest effect on the game. But like I said, I'm a perfectionist. I like to play the best. I want to give myself the best chances out of the opening. And then, yeah, forcing moves, right? You can't make those sorts of blunders. Because black threw away a 1 position, white threw away a 1 position, and then white threw away a draw. The game swung by 2 full points. And I mean like tournament points. It went from 0-1 to 1-0 back to 0-1, which is unfortunate for both players. So a nice game. I thought there were some really cool ideas. Definitely a lot to learn from. And yeah, I will be hopefully releasing my next video soon. I have a cool idea for the next one, so make sure you check it out. Have a lovely evening, and hope to catch you all another day.